Welcome to the Reddit library. Today we'll be looking at r/AskReddit, where the user Hussein HSN asked the question, what is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? What is your greatest weakness? Probably that I have no strengths. Those big blue eyes of yours. My eyes are brown. And my second greatest weakness would probably be observational skills, I guess. Why do you want to work here? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. I take words too literally. Can you give an example? Yes. What's your greatest weakness? Finishing other people's sentences. Sandwiches. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was the whole say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously, don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I did the same thing when I got my current job. I told them I have ADHD, but it's not too much of an issue, as it forced me to become incredibly organized and keep notes and checklists and calendars and reminders, so I rarely forget stuff, and I'm more organized than most. The only problem is that I sometimes worry about whether I've forgotten something anyway and need to double check things. Edit. Well, this blew up. I'm obviously not saying that everyone should disclose all their disabilities, but if you have it under control and you can actually put a positive spin on it, such as me being even more organized than the average person because the ADHD forces me to, you can maybe get away with it. I'm also not American, so there's obviously some cultural, legal differences to consider as well, which is why my post was a reply to someone else, not a separate suggestion. Only use this if you actually have ADHD. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry, yet. If you are younger, say inexperience. Anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. I got my current job after I said this. The interviewer asked me if I had any questions or concerns about the position. I said, I'm a quick and eager learner, but I'll be honest, I have absolutely no experience in this industry, so training me will need to be from the ground up. Will that be an issue? And that's how you do it, folks. For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. User IdeaHogger18. I said, I don't like letting go of unfinished projects during my interviews. I feel like it shows that I'm dedicated to the work I take on. For example, I know some people say I'm a workaholic as a weakness, and you'd think that would make you sound very hardworking, but it's been heard 1,000 times, and it's not unique or strong. Hearing the workaholic thing too is extremely off-putting to me because it either means they're a kiss-ass or they will put in a ton of overtime and stress out everyone else because they now have to keep up with that person putting in the time of 2 people and then just ultimately burn out. I'm terrible at interviews. I'm bad at interviews. I guess I don't do them very often. I have typically stayed at previous jobs for a long time. It says here on your resume, no, you don't. Can you explain what happened at your last position? It says here you were employed from October 12, 2018 until 3:45 p.m. The building was on fire, and I didn't do it. Also, my red swing line stapler was missing. Actual weakness. Taking on jobs by myself, not taking time to train other people to do them. In the end, I'm usually the guy and find myself feeling burnt out. Probably could be worded better at an interview, but this could sound like you're a go-getter. It might also encourage your employer to find opportunities for you to train other people to do things you particularly don't like doing. Training people is a lot of work with little reward, and if things go south, you can get crud on. You didn't train them on this. I got burnout training because you work hard to train them and they end up being flakes and not listening or listening to the wrong person. In my head, I'm like, that's not how it's done. I also don't like bombarding new hires with info, so I get tight-lipped when someone that has been working for a while says something incorrect. It's rough. Oof, I feel that. I'm a very hands-off trainer once we've gone through the basics. I'll let my trainees make mistakes and talk with them about it afterwards. To be clear though, I'm keeping an eye on them. I work in healthcare and always say, not speaking Spanish. And odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. I've heard this is the best answer, and to follow it up with something like, but I'm still trying to improve that language. Weak against fire and sharp objects. Underrated comment. We'd make pretty bad Pokemon. Weak to fire, water, electricity, grass, ice, rocks, the ground, steel, fighting, poison, flying, falling. If dragons, fairies, ghosts, and psychics existed, we'd probably be weak to them too. Some people are even additionally weak to bugs and the dark. There's nothing that we're actually good at. We're the ultimate glass cannon, even less resilient than glass, but also invented the cannon. Edit. It was supposed to be a lighthearted thing, but since two people have questioned the glass part, here we go. Humans generally don't fight to the death or to the faint. That's pretty much why we think we'd lose against most animals half of our size. To them, they could walk away with a broken leg, a missing leg, and a gash across their face and count it as a victory. Most of us would admit defeat at first almost blood, and it doesn't take very much to get to that point. So we're not talking about the force needed to break a femur or dislocate an elbow. We're talking about how easy it is to damage soft and squishy skin. Furthermore, glass isn't even that weak. It's just that we usually see it in millimeter thick sheets or being hit by hard objects. You could wail on a glass pan the thickness of your forearm all day and not do much to it, unless you smash it on the hard floor. And if you're ever skidded down a road or even a smoothish stone surface, that's not fun for a human either. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice could backfire, that's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I'm the same way. I'd be afraid to say this in an interview though because it could be interpreted as not a team player. I wouldn't say I'm not a team player, but I do have a hard time working with a lazy team that does cruddy work. It's a pretty good answer. I've both used it and heard it in interviews, and it always comes off as introspective and insightful, as long as you can say how you're planning to deal with this. There's nothing wrong with saying that you have a hard time working with a lazy team if you reword it, such as saying you have high standards for yourself as well as others, and often find yourself pushing yourself or your team harder than necessary, even if you're not the team leader. To improve on this, you're learning to delegate and/or plan out team responsibilities, or some such. I hate this interview question. I interview candidates every few months. This is a totally useless question. The field I interview for usually has passionate people, so instead I ask, of all the aspects of doing job, which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Nobody is nervous about this question. Gives me some insight into what they want to be working on, where they think they are strongest, and what would make them happy and productive versus bored. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. While at my last performance evaluation, I received some constructive criticism regarding X, so since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they're doing and/or don't give a crud, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. They aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. This is exactly it. There are no right answers, but there are certainly wrong answers. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I am doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they don't like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs, and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the gold and silver. Rest in peace to my inbox. This is me. I'll help my husband with projects in the garage, working on the car, building things, etc. And I always want to know why or how we're doing it. It drives him crazy because he doesn't want to stop work to explain it. He was in the army and trained to just do what he was told without question. But I can't function like that. I can't mindlessly do something without knowing what its purpose is. My life growing up. Helped my dad with chores and animals every weekend and never knew when we would be stopping or if I had more after I finished my current task. It helped my work ethic in the long run, but dang, I'm laying it all out there when my kids got older. We're gonna mow, pull weeds, and mulch. Should take 4 hours and we'll get ice cream afterwards. Done. My dad was the same. Drove me nuts, and there was never ice cream at the end. LOL. Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Edit. Wow, was having a not so cool day, but got here to see that I got my first gold. Thanks, stranger. Now to figure out what it does. Probably. That is certainly something I could look into for you. You're hired. Probably. I'm too honest. I don't think being too honest is a bad thing. I don't give a crow what you think. Figure out a skill that's not required for the job you are applying for, but is required for the job 2 promotions above that job. Then say it's your big weakness, but that also you are looking to learn and develop that skill from people who are strong at it. Alternatively, if you're far enough along in your career that you have had several promotions and have had reports, people to delegate to, you can say you were never as good as other people at skills someone below your job level must do, but that's why you've learned to delegate it. I interviewed a girl once and she said, "Honestly, cake. I can never say no to it." She was so genuine and the answers struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong, they froze up. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, "Tell me about a time you screwed up at work." She thought for a while and said, "Gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions." That's what we wanted as interviewers. Not a perfect answer, just people that seem comfortable and normal, lol. Tell me about a time you screwed up at work. I asked this question and then tell them about how I accidentally took down a regional data center, exposing a serious design flaw in our network. Do you have any interview tips or tricks? Leave them in the comments below for a chance to be featured in an upcoming video. Remember to hit subscribe for more videos from the library. Thank you for watching.